This is going to be a section of the show that we have going forward where one or both of us will be able to express an opinion on a given topic. And this week for us, it's one of the biggest stories of the off-season when it was confirmed this week that MotoGP has a new home for the Australian Grand Prix, and it's Adelaide. Now, for those of us of a certain age, that name carries some weight because between 1985 and 1995, Adelaide hosted 11 Formula One Grand Prix. And I know what you're thinking. It can't be the same track, right? The Adelaide track used back then was a street track. And it'd be a fair assumption because MotoGP doesn't race on street tracks. The insane speeds of the bikes, nature of street circuit racing, closeness of the walls, the lack of runoff, it doesn't mix. And with the announcement of the new race proudly boasting that MotoGP will hit speeds in excess of 340 kilometers an hour, that's over 210 miles an hour, you'd of course be absolutely within your rights to assume they're not going to race on those same streets that hosted the likes of Ayrton Senna, Alain Prost and Michael Schumacher. And yet you'd be wrong. We'd all be wrong. Because MotoGP intends to race on the very same street circuit in Adelaide, which once hosted Formula One. Now, to understand why this is happening, we need some context. Liberty Media, the company that completely revolutionized the global appeal of Formula One over the past decade, has recently completed its purchase of MotoGP. And unless you've been living under a rock, you'll know the effect Liberty's purchase had on F1. Explosive global growth, the Netflix effect, a Hollywood movie, an expanded calendar, record revenues. It has been a commercial masterclass, even if some critics argue the sport lost a little bit of its soul along the way. So when Liberty acquired MotoGP, reaction was split pretty neatly down the middle. Optimism that motorcycle racing could experience the same surge in popularity, and trepidation that in chasing that surge, the sport might sacrifice part of its identity. Now, this is the first major change announced under the new ownership, and it has been both seismic and controversial because the Australian Grand Prix isn't just changing locations or moving to the streets, it's leaving Phillip Island, and that matters. Phillip Island wasn't just another stop on the calendar. It was rough, it was raw, it was unrelenting, unforgiving. A majestic, undulating, flowing ribbon of asphalt by the sea. Such was its challenge, such was its tenure and importance that its place on the calendar was considered unquestionable. Think Talladega for NASCAR, think Spa for F1, Laguna Seca for IndyCar. It's a piece of history whose challenge represented one of the defining hallmarks of the championship. Conquering it meant more than almost any other circuit. It was special, and until last week, it was sacrosanct. So why has it gone? Facilities, accessibility, investment. The new owners reportedly wanted upgrades that weren't forthcoming. A new bidder emerged, pressure was applied, and Phillip Island lost its race. And perhaps, just perhaps, a line was drawn. Because if the most beloved circuit on the calendar can be removed this quickly, then theoretically, no venue's safe. Liberty hasn't been shy in revolutionizing the F1 calendar either. Over the past decade, it's embraced the street circuit model. Saudi Arabia, Miami, Las Vegas, a new race this year in Madrid, a strategy refined by Formula E and perfected commercially in F1. If you want to develop a new market, don't make your fans travel to see the sport. Take the sport to the fans. Put it downtown. Make it unmissable. It's smart business. But here's the issue. Australia is not an emerging market for MotoGP. It already has one of the most passionate fan bases in the world, multiple world champion riders. It already had one of the greatest circuits in world motorsport. And there's something else Liberty may need to remember. MotoGP is not Formula One. What worked there might not work in MotoGP. Formula One also races on street circuits. MotoGP doesn't, and for good reason. Motorcycle racing is already one of the most dangerous disciplines in our sport. There's no cockpit, there's no survival cell, just millimeters of leather and a helmet between rider and the ultimate consequence. The announcement of the Adelaide race promises uncompromised safety, yes, but also speeds that surpass the top speed set by F1 in testing last week in Bahrain, and all on a street circuit. So personally, I struggle to see how those two realities comfortably coexist. And the imposition of a street race is a precedent that few fans of MotoGP have the stomach for. Is this a bold experiment? Is this a commercial statement of intent? Is this a warning to other circuits to modernize or move aside? And look, I worked for Liberty Media for almost a decade, and I'll be honest, at the start of my tenure there, I didn't understand some of their decisions. They seemed to fly in the face of what I understood the sport of Formula One to be. Some, but very few, were missteps. But most were bang on the money, even if those of us who'd been around the sport for a little while didn't fully understand them at the time. They were changes that absolutely needed to be made, and history has proven they knew precisely what they were doing. So is this a decision that will be proven right in time? Or is this a step too far too soon, in a championship they've only just purchased and are only just beginning to understand? One thing is for sure, the sport itself finds itself at a major crossroads. But is it taking the right direction?
Ultimately, it comes down, it's unsafe to start with, right? Like, as far as the forms of motor racing and everything that we see, you go out there and hurt somebody or kill them, on a street circuit with something that's a bold decision. Certainly, do they have a safety commission or anything?
Yeah,
surely that would come down to a decision like that.
I think ultimately it's down to the riders.
Yeah.
To decide if they want to take that risk or not. As you say, it's already a tremendously dangerous form of our sport. And those guys are rock stars.
Oh.
The risks that they take, the speeds that they ride. I have untold respect for MotoGP riders. But it's going to be down to them, isn't it?
It is.
They're the ones that take the decision to jump on that bike and go and race. And look, ultimately, they've said in the statement, the safety standards will be supreme. So I guess we have to wait and see what the ultimate layout.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it can't. They've said it will be the same as the F1 track, right? But it can't be exactly the same because the walls were too close even for F1 30 years ago.
Right.
So something will have to be different, and I can't see them going and racing. I can't see the riders getting on their bikes and going out to partake even in a practice session unless they arrive at that track, they walk around it and they say, yeah, you know what, I'm okay with this.
Yeah.
But it's a huge moment for MotoGP because not only is it the first street race in championship history, but they're leaving this classic venue. And there's so much desire within the fan base of every racing championship that you stay at those classic tracks, right? Because they're part of the soul of the sport. What makes the sport special? Can you imagine not having the Daytona 500 or not racing at Talladega or
Darlington?
Right. It's unimaginable. And yet the very first thing that has happened is you take away this classic track.
And that's not something, I mean, we've seen Liberty challenge a lot of the classic tracks on the F1 schedule as well. So this isn't an unprecedented situation that they put themselves in.
No, like all of the new tracks that Formula One's had since Liberty took over have been street tracks, except for, and here's an irony, Qatar, which is actually a MotoGP track that you put Formula One cars
How ironic.
And ironically maybe doesn't create the greatest race because it's a MotoGP track, not an F1 track. But no, they've all been street races. But like just because it works in Formula One doesn't mean that same methodology works for MotoGP. And as I said, not in an area like Australia that already has that. I get it in a new emerging market.
Right.
The concept of take it to the fan rather than if you build it, they will come. It's
risky.
It's bold.
Yeah.
Take nothing away. It's bold.
Yeah.
And again, as I said, look, Liberty have proven the doubters wrong time and time again.
Yes.
And just because if you've been established in a sport for a long time, you don't understand the decisions in the moment, doesn't mean that over time they won't be proved to be the right decisions. Because a decade later, you look at what Liberty did in the early years, and everyone's sort of going, doesn't need a theme tune, doesn't need a new logo, bring back grid girls. And it's like, you know what, all the things they decided early on, they were just the small things, but all the big decisions they made, they were proved to be absolutely dead right. But I think it's something for the fans, ultimately, to determine whether it's right or wrong. So let us know what you think. Contact the show via the social media channels, Speed on Fox, and let us know what you think about MotoGP's decision to leave Phillip Island and go racing on the streets of Adelaide.